Alright guys, K-Dash here from Keystone Hobbies, and today we are going through a deck tech for Yawgmoth combo in Modern. Um, Kevin here has piloted the deck for how long, buddy?
Since Eldraine came out,
Is
so
that when the deck became a thing?
no, it was there before it, but it wasn't good. It was even still, it probably took until MH2 to come out for the deck to really catch on with a lot of new tools that the deck got. Before that, it was a bad mid-range deck that had a combo in it. So
I remember my first experience with Yawgmoth. This was before Modern Horizons 2, mind you. Uh, I was in one of Eric's 2K events, and I seen Yawgmoth, and I'm like, okay, like I know this card's good, but how does it combo?
what does it do?
Yeah, yeah,
And a
and
lot of people forget a lot of text on the card because they know one ability, and
yep.
then it's like, wait, it has protection from humans? Wait, you can proliferate with that thing? Like, it has a lot of options where you just kind of get to do weird math with the deck a
hmm
lot. And it makes what the deck does, every time you play the deck, it's gonna feel unique almost every time.
Now, mind you, it was so slow at that point. I comboed off with turns
Yeah,
before he was
yeah,
even
even
established.
set up.
Yeah.
The deck has definitely changed a lot. It's more of a very strong mid-range deck with a very strong combo as well. It plays a lot of bad creatures that just so happen to be really good right now.
Air quotes.
Yeah,
Bad
yeah,
creatures.
bad creatures, which we'll definitely go over. I mean, first and foremost, we'll start with
The core. Yeah, let's start with the core.
the boy. Once again, Young Wolf, bad creature, which is really good right now because your opponent goes turn one Ragavan and you go turn one Young Wolf. Their options are either wasting two removal spells on Young Wolf, which, alright, that's fine by me. That's two Unholy Heats or two Bolts I don't have to worry about later. Or they just sit with a Ragavan in play that just stares at a wolf until.
The best feeling.
Yeah, so.
Your $70 card
Yeah,
just got
yeah. I
outmatched
outmatched by
by
Young
a
Wolf.
common.
Yeah, so Young Wolf is awkwardly enough, but one of the best creatures for the combo for the deck because
That's 1 mana.
it's one mana. You'll A lot of the Undying creatures, ward wipes don't work. Like Supreme Verdict, not so prevalent right now, but at a lot of times it was very prevalent. Board wipes don't really do too much. The meta is definitely shifting more towards the exile, which does hurt a bit, but with Yawgmoth in play, they have to get rid of Yawgmoth before they get rid of anything.
Yup.
So once again, Young Wolf, super strong. The other main core of the deck is the Strangleroot Geists. So, the Strangleroot Geists, once again, it's
Oh, I guess we should establish. Could you go over what Undying is?
Undying.
Because Young Wolf has Undying,
That's right.
and it's a very important part of this combo.
So how Undying works is when this creature dies, if it has no +1/+1 counters on it, it comes back from the graveyard with a +1/+1 counter on it. So every time it goes to the graveyard, it comes back, as long as it didn't have a counter on it.
Yep.
Um,
And
Stranglergeist, 2/1 with haste. The deck used to care about your life total a lot more. The deck has kind of gotten away from that recently because Blood Artist and Zulaport Cutthroat are insane cards that open up a lot of things. We'll go over the pros and cons of those later. But yeah, Strangleroot Geist pretty much always comes in, deals its 2 damage, and then you get to sit with it and kind of just outvalue people. Even just like the top deck Strangleroot Geist mid game could just like sway games. Super quick, super easy. And then the last like combo card of the deck is Messenger.
of course. Now I
Uh,
remember
card used
back in the day, this deck would run four
four,
of, which was terrible.
which felt it was good against control decks because they were doing the Supreme Verdict.
Geist Messenger or Geralf's Messenger,
Jareth's
sorry,
Messenger.
is 3 black for a
Black.
3/2. It enters tapped. When it enters a battlefield, target opponent loses 2 life with Undying.
Yeah, so how the combo used to work is that you had to have Messenger and another Undying creature in Yawgmoth, and your opponent had to be at a less life total than you.
Or equal, right?
No,
Oh,
just
it has to be
less
less.
than you. So that was always the hard part of the deck. It's like you had to manage your life total, and we'll go over later on. Your life total doesn't matter anymore,
Nope.
which is great. It really is fun. The other awkward combo card of the deck, some people sway away from it, some people swear that you should be running more than one, is Hepatra.
I love this.
Probably one of my favorite cards for the deck. When Hepatra deals combat damage to a player, you put a neg 1 counter on target creature. That part comes up rarely. It is very good. Like I said, comes up very rarely though. It's the other ability that really makes Hepatra shine, and it's whenever you put a neg 1 counter on target creature, you get a 1/1 green snake with Death Touch, which doesn't sound appealing, but we'll go over why that's very important, in a, and we'll just get to it right now. The main guy of the show, um, 4 of Yawgmoth, obviously. That'll never change with the deck, I don't think.
No.
Um, a good way to know if you want to play this deck. If you want to play this deck, you hate Hammer Time, and you don't like Ragavan. It the deck destroys the mid-range creature decks. Like Affinity right now is picking up again. Yawgmoth hoses it. They put a 4/4 into play for 7 mana. You play a Yawgmoth, and that their 4/4 just became that you get to draw 4 cards and pay 4 life. Um, a lot of people think that. I mean, Yawgmoth is insane. Like I said, it has protection from humans. Pay 1 life, sacrifice another creature, put a neg 1 counter on up to 1 target creature, and draw a card. Double black, discard a card, proliferate. So how the combo works is that if you have 1 Undying creature, and we'll make math easy, and we'll
Thank you.
use Strangleroot Geist as the other example. I can pay 1 life to sacrifice Strangleroot Geist. Strangleroot Geist will trigger, come back with a +1/+1 counter due to Undying, and then I'll draw a card off Yawgmoth, and then I will pay another life, sacrifice Yawgmoth, targeting Strangleroot Geist. Yawgmoth will trigger, comes back with a +1/+1 counter, and then it removes the counter off of Strangleroot Geist, and you draw a card. So what happens is, if I sacrifice Strangleroot Geist now and target Yawgmoth, Yawgmoth will lose 1/1 counter, and Geist will get it back.
And you're drawing
And
all
you're
those
drawing
cards.
cards every time you do this, so you pretty much just establish a Yawg bargain in Modern.
It's sweet value.
Yeah, which is phenomenal.
While even if you have like a bunch of these creatures in play, you can even use Yawgmoth as a way of just destroying your opponent's board.
Yeah, which once again, Hepatra is one of my favorite cards in the deck for that very reason. If you just have a board state like this, you sacrifice Strangleroot Geist, you target one of your opponent's creatures, they get a neg 1 counter on it, you get a snake. Now you could sack the snake to target their creature. So you pay 1 life, target their creature, snake goes away, their creature gets a -1/-1 counter, triggering Hepatra, getting a snake back. So pretty much with just these 2 out, you could just kill your opponent's board. And that's really interesting with how insane Murktide is. Like, Murktide is a card that you don't play many flying creatures or creatures with reach. Murktide is terrifying when there's a 7/7 dragon across the board. But what's really fun is that Yawgmoth and Hepatra pretty much just say, "Hey, look, I'm gonna kill your Murktide and activate Grizzlebrand." And now you just pay 7 life, draw 7 cards, kill their creature.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, too, if you have 2 other Undying creatures, so if you have like Yawgmoth and Stranglerootgeist, and you do the Yawg bargain, well, you do the Yawg bargain again, you could just make snakes also while you're doing this. That could fuel your cords for later. That could fuel just killing your opponent quicker. I mean, that's an extra 5 damage that you just created.
Because the snakes are green and black?
Just green.
Just green.
Just green.
Okay. So, yeah, that's objectively better.
Yeah, they also just
Because they can tap for a solid green for cord.
for cord every time. So they're once again, Hepatra is one of my favorite cards. Single-handedly destroys Hammer. Like I said, you literally just have Hepatra, Yawgmoth in play versus Hammer. There's not much they get to do about it in game one. You just kill them. And then also with this, you could also just use the Yawg combo again to sack the snake, target messenger. These 2 die. You trigger Hepatra because you put a -1/-1 counter on a creature. You get a snake. You could sack the Stranglerootgeist to target the snake. They once again both die. You put a -1/-1 counter on a creature, so snake comes back, and then messenger, or then Geist will come back with a +1/+1 counter. So you could also do the Yawg combo with Hepatra and another Undying creature. Messenger used to be really important. This is how you killed people. Since the deck has became more of a mid-range deck, the less and less copies of Messenger you will play. A friend and I, Harley, we have gone over just not playing Messenger at all anymore.
Now, Kevin and Harley that we just said, these 2 are known for playing Yawgmoth combo. It's under my impression that not many people play it, and you 2 were kind of like the OGs in our community for playing this.
He picked it up recently. He picked it up for like 2 months. Said it was the best deck in the format by a large margin, and he actually just recently dropped it because he just wanted to play something else. He still thinks that it's one of the best decks in the format. He just wanted to play something different.
Yeah, understandable.
So that's the very core of the deck. A bunch of Undying creatures, and Yawgmoth. Who knew that Yawg bargain was a good card? So those are the main core of the deck. Hepatra is a flex spot. You don't have to play it, but I do think it is a very, very good card.
Absolutely.
So, the Mana Dorks, for Ig, you have no reason not to play Ig. Card is just good.
Yep.
Exalted, you can play your 3-drops on turn 2. We'll go over why that's huge later on. But yeah, 4 Igs. A lot of people will play 4 Birds of Paradise. I only play 3. 7 Mana Dorks I feel like is enough at the 1-drop slot. And I do play my 2-drop slots differently than a lot, and that's where like the controversy with my list comes up.
Okay.
Because I only play 3 Walroots.
Okay. And normal list run 4?
Normal list will run 4. But the reason why I only run 3 is because I play double Innkeeper.
Okay.
And
I see most lists run 1 Innkeeper, so why do you run 2?
It does relatively the exact same thing as Wall of Roots, with a lot bigger of an upside.
Okay.
Burn is a weird matchup. Innkeeper makes it so they have to deal with Innkeeper first. That's just preventing 3 life. When you cast Innkeeper, you know what that treasure is going towards. If you cast Innkeeper and you go, I don't know how this treasure token is going to work out, you shouldn't be playing it. When you cast that spell, you should be like, that treasure is going towards this creature this turn, or like counted towards casting Yawgmoth next turn, or I'm going to save it for 2 more turns if I draw a Cord or if I draw an Evolution. When you cast this spell, you should know what that treasure does every time. Like, That's a very big part with this. And it's the same thing with like Wall of Roots. Wall of Roots is obviously really good with Cord. You get to tap it for essentially 2 green instead of just 1. And you could use it multiple times.
Hmm.
Innkeeper will also just make it so your Yogg bargain, just you don't pay life. You just get it. You just draw cards for free, which will lead to a really cool combo, which I'll explain later. Um, it's weird, but you get to win on your opponent's upkeep, which is really fun. So
Yeah. Yep.
I'll put these guys off to the side for now.
Anytime you can win at instant speed, you have my attention.
Yeah, and it's actually because of the next few cards. I play Zulport Cutthroat over Blood Artist. I like the word each.
In case someone listening doesn't know the difference between the two, Blood Artist, when it triggers, it targets an opponent, whereas Cutthroat,
Cutthroat says each.
Zolaport, Cutthroat says each, so it gets around hexproof and stuff like
Veil
that.
of Summer is the big one.
Okay.
So if you go to combo off with Messenger, your opponent can Veil Summer that because it does say target opponent. I like having the backup option of being just like, here's a Cutthroat, you can't do anything about it. I like now Blood Artist does have the upside of whenever your opponent's creatures die, you also gain life, or they lose life and you gain life. So that's
Which could be very possible if you're
yeah,
killing your opponent's board using Yawgmoth.
yes. I also just prefer not to rely on what my opponent is doing. If they're not playing a creature deck, it doesn't matter if you're playing Cutthroat or Artist. If they are playing creature deck, then yeah, Artist is a little bit better. But I feel like I would rather not rely on my opponent's creatures dying and just work on killing my opponent with my own stuff.
Yeah,
So I also like the fact it's a 1/1 if you get in.
especially with running your exalted creatures, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Like so, the argument of Blood Artist and Cutthroat will always be there. I just prefer Cutthroat. It's just
Yeah.
it's just there.
And there's no point in running one of each in the deck, right?
Not really.
Yeah. You have so many other outs.
You have so many outs in especially the next card. I'll put Cutthroat over here for now. The big baddie of the deck nowadays.
Two
Two
endurance.
endurance in the
I
main.
like it.
Card is insane. Card is. We aren't gonna hide it. Card is absurdly powerful.
It's a 3 mana with flash and reach for a 3/4. When it enters the battlefield, up to one target player puts all the cards from their graveyard on the bottom of their library in a random order with an evoke cost of exile a green card from your hand.
So
Bonkers.
there's so many things you could do with this card. You could invoke it in response to the invoke trigger. You sack it to Yawgmoth to draw a card.
Hmm.
Um, and the thing that Harley and I had a fun discussion with because of Innkeeper. So you have 2 undying creatures and an Innkeeper in play. So the math is actually like perfect on how it works, and it's pretty important. So you have two undying creatures, endurance in your hand, or endurance anywhere. That's the best part. It doesn't matter. If you have an Innkeeper in play, a Yawgmoth, if you have this board state, you win the game. And like I said, this is on your opponent's upkeep, you win the game, not on yours, which is the most fun part about it. So you, instead of Yogg bargaining, you could just draw your entire library, yes?
Yep.
So all you do, you draw your entire library, and you go to cleanup step. You discard everything besides 2 endurance. We'll go over Cord later. And you always want to discard your artist effect. And the reason why is that during your opponent's upkeep, you go in response to your upkeep, pitch a green card, cast endurance, You're gonna stack it so the invoke trigger goes on the stack first, and then the shuffle effect goes on second. So the shuffle effect will happen, and then you pitch another card to cast your second endurance in response to the invoke trigger. Now, in response to this, 1, 2, 3, or actually, you only need one endurance to do it. So it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Now you can chord for 2 to get Cutthroat with your entire library in your deck, and you kill him instead. So you just win at your opponent's upkeep with just one endurance and an innkeeper. You could also do it with Essence Warden. That's your other flex spot for this card. But yeah, you could just win on your opponent's upkeep. It's also, like I was saying earlier, you don't need Messenger anymore. Messenger could be dropped entirely from the deck. Cutthroat or Artist work just fine. You don't really need them.
So good.
So this is just such a good being able to win on your opponent's upkeep. You get around Force and Negation, big card right now. You go around everything. It is fantastic to feel winning on your opponent's upkeep when they think that they're fine.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there's so many other ways of doing everything that the deck does, which is once again why the deck is so fun to play.
Uh, this deck gets kind of a bad rap. It may not be as severe by saying a bad rap, but a lot of players kind of don't pick this deck up because of all the lines and all the different things you have to think about while you play. But would you say this deck, the more you learn the deck, the better you become with it, and you become more like consistent?
Oh god, yeah. The deck is incredibly complicated. There's so many lines you could do, but on the other spectrum of it, you get to play the core, which is 4 Yawgmoth, 4 Geist, 4 Wolf, and 1 Messenger. And the rest of the deck you can make however you want. You don't need mana dorks. You don't need to play the 2 of Endurance. You don't need to play Innkeeper. As long as the core of the deck is there, you could kind of do whatever you feel is best. You could be playing like 4 Thoughtseize in the main. There's Jund versions now where you're playing like Magus of the Moon and stuff like that. And there are Urian versions of the deck happening right now where you're playing 80 cards with Ether Vials and like a whole bunch of other stuff. Like,
Would you say how do I want to word this? The difference between say your deck and the Urian style decks that are out there, would you say this is more consistent, or would you say an 80 card deck with Ether Vials and other miscellaneous stuff would be more consistent?
it's all a personal preference
Hmm.
thing. If you want to play more of a mid-range deck, then yeah, Urian's great. You get to play a really good mid-range deck. But if you want to play a good mid-range deck that has a combo in it, the 60 card is just going to be more consistent to get your combo. But I mean, being a very strong mid-range deck is phenomenal. Um, and one of the best cards actually that came out that made this deck probably one of the best mid-range decks out there is this gal right here. Grist is absolutely insane.
I agree.
Um, she goes by Queen of the Swarm. So um, there's so many things I could say about this card in the deck. You're playing Undying creatures, so the -2. Who cares? Your creatures are coming back. You are not 1-for-1ing anything. You are 0-for-1ing their creature. You get to uptick, make an insect that you could sacrifice to Yogg later, which is just draws cards. You could go on and on why Grist is probably one of the best cards printed for the deck ever. Um, there's just so many.
Behind Yawgmoth.
Yeah, I mean, it's debatable, which is crazy. I only play 3, mainly because I only own 3. I probably would play 4 if I owned the 4th. Um, It's not like the card is expensive. I'm just lazy. But there are so many games where you go turn 1 Mana Dork, they don't kill the Mana Dork, and you go turn 2 Grist, and now they're spending the next like 4 or 5 turns just trying to kill Grist.
Now, one of my favorite parts of this card is as long as she isn't on the battlefield, it's a 1/1 insect creature in addition to its other types. So, what's the importance of that?
First off, we are playing 7 tutors in the deck, 3 evolution, and 4 chords of calling. Evolution, as an additional cost to cast, you sacrifice a creature. You search your library for a creature that costs 2 more than the sacrificed creature's mana cost, or less. You sack a 1-drop, you can go get Grist. You sack a 2-drop, you go get Grist. You pretty much all of your creatures could evolution into Grist. And
There's not a single one that can't.
Dryad Arbor, but
Oh, okay, yeah.
Dryad Arbor has its own niches for later. Chord of Calling, once again, chord for 3, go get Grist. Also, if you just hard cast Grist from your hand, once again, cannot force negation Grist. Grist is a creature on the stack, cannot force negation of Grist. Card counts as a creature in the graveyard, so if it's at 5, you ult Grist, she counts towards her own ability. She's a creature in the yard.
So good.
So it might not be what you're wanting to do, but the fact that it's that little bit extra, sometimes it's all you need. You could go on and on and on how strong of a card Grist is, and just how she has defined the deck to really make it a mid-range deck. Like I said, you could say 1,000 things about this card, and still can go on and on how good of a card it is.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, when the deck relies when your opening hand, you could look at it and you could go, man, this is going to be a good hand where I get to cast a Grist on turn 2 or turn 3. And I may not have a way to get to Yawgmoth, but Grist is sometimes just strong enough to win the game itself. She really does just force people to deal with her. She makes a 1/1 blocker, so once again, Ragavan, completely useless. She is absurd. Like I said, probably one of the best cards printed for the deck in a really long time. And she just does everything you ever want.
And more.
And more. And once again,
she's a win-con.
Yeah, she's a win-con in her own right.
She does everything you want for this deck. She feels Chord. She can feel Eldritch Evolution. She can make your creatures bigger if they need to be using Undying while killing another Planeswalker or creature.
Yeah. Planeswalker too, so your opponent has a Renin 6 about to ult, just kill the Renin 6.
Grist says, you need to answer me immediately, or I'm just going to run away with the game.
Yeah, she snowballs so fast, and it's really niche, and sometimes it happens. But when your opponent is planning on killing Grist, like, alright, they casted a Grist, I have to kill that in 2 turns. It happens every now and then. You uptick a Grist, you mill a Grist.
Make another one.
And so what Grist
another
does...
1/1, that is. You repeat the process.
Yeah, you create a 1/1 black-green insect creature token, then you mill a card. So you take the top card of your library, put it into the graveyard. If that card's an insect, you repeat the process and put an extra loyalty counter on her. So there are times where you just mill a Grist, and then you just mill another card. Well, now you just made 2 1/1s and went to 5 loyalty. And
value.
They can't bolt minus a Renin 6 against Grist anymore. They have to do so much more just to get rid of your Planeswalker that's a huge threat all of a sudden.
All of a sudden.
And like I said, she sways games, and with Endurance is the other reason why the deck became such a strong mid-range deck. When you're going through the game, you are playing that long, grindy matchup, Endurance or Graveyard back in. Shuffle a Grist or two back into your library, shuffle Endurance back into your library, and then you're fueled to keep doing that grind fest against a control deck, and you could just do it. Grist and Endurance really push that grindy game to a whole different level, um, which makes the deck feel like you don't have any bad matchups. You do, obviously.
Yeah, I wanted to get into that. What are some bad matchups and some really good matchups for this deck?
Rhinos is pretty rough. Awkwardly enough, Rhinos Elementals is really rough too. They play 4 of Endurance.
What percent of the meta are they?
Both those are pretty high still. Burn doesn't feel like a bad matchup, but it's not a good one either. It's you have to get your stuff going before they can really kill you.
It
All their instants and sorceries are going towards your face. You have to race those. If you can, you can. You don't really need to worry about their creatures because your creatures just trade up to them very fairly. So it's can you get those innkeepers in play? Could you gain four? Could you gain 3 or 4 life off of them? And that's huge. Anything to make that matchup going in the right direction. As long as you're doing stuff, it doesn't feel like a bad matchup. But the second you run out of anything to do, feels really brutal. Amulet, once again, it's a race. Can you get to your Yogg combo first, or can they get to their Titan first? Whoever gets there first wins. It's just a race. The good matchups, like I was saying earlier, if you want to beat Hammer Time, this is the deck for you. Hammer Time, Affinity, any mid-range creature deck, you're just doing it better. Who cares if your opponent plays a free 4/4 artifact creature that just says pay 4 life, kill that creature, draw 4 cards. um, Especially since now they're just here's a cranial plating onto this creature. Well, in response, kill the creature. Now you wasted your mana, wasted half your turn.
Yep.
Even Netinal Cyst, like, okay, I'll throw a creature in front of that and then sacrifice that creature to kill something else. Hammer Time, they go to equip that hammer. You just shoot the creature that they're trying to equip.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to care what they're doing. Those matchups are literally just play Yawgmoth and you're going to win the game.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of matchups that are like that, where you just play Yawgmoth and sometimes you just draw 5 cards and your opponent is running out of fuel while you just fueled yourself back up and you're good to go for another 5 or 6 turns. You have
Mm-hmm.
so much to do. Yeah, but that's the main stuff of the deck.
How many lands are you running in this?
I personally am running 20. You can either do 20, 21.
Okay. So it's only like a one
Yeah,
difference.
it's not by much. You
Okay.
always just the one Dryad Arbor. You could fetch for it. Count like you could use it to start yogging if you're land flooded. The card just is good. There's no reason not to play it. I do 2 basic forests because Blood Moon still is a real card. It still exists out there. 1 swamp, super easy. Ouroborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth. You don't play many black sources anymore. A good way to think of the deck, you are a mono green deck that plays black win cons. In all reality, that's what you're doing. So, you need to cast those black cards somehow.
Yep.
I played 2 Twilight Mire. The filter lands are fine, but sometimes when they're in your opening hand and these are your 2 lands, can't keep it. You got to mulligan.
Yep.
It feels bad, but like I said, sometimes you need those black sources, and double black is kind of how the deck wins. I mean, when I played the deck, originally this was just a 4 of because you had to play Messenger. And going from Strangleroot Geist turn 2 to Messenger on turn 3,
It's huge.
you really needed them. But now that you don't need that, and now that Endurance and Grist are kind of just insane value and really strong, Twilight Mire's coming less and less useful.
It's a good thing that the deck is gone away from Messenger, because like you said, going from like Geist, which is 2 green, to Messenger, which is 3 black, it's almost like you have to play at least on average like 1 or 2 shock lands, and by that point you're down so low, your life total needs to be higher than your
Yeah,
opponent.
yeah. Especially back then, the deck like
Yeah.
required that you had to have a higher life total.
So now I feel like it's way more consistent.
The deck is way, way better than it used to be. We used to play Cavalier of Night, and that card is not good. It's a 5 mana 4/5 with lifelink. When it enters the battlefield, sacrifice a creature, destroy target creature, and when it dies, you reanimate a 3-drop creature. Which all those effects are fine, but for 5 mana, it's a lot to not do a lot.
Especially because if you're paying 4 for Yawgmoth, that's usually the end of the game.
Yeah, usually, and you really only went to Cavalier at Night when you really had to kill a creature, or you really, really, really needed to gain 4 life off of the lifelink. Which, if you're using it to kill a creature, Griff does it for 3 mana. So if you're using it for the life part, that's why I'm playing Innkeeper.
Mm-hmm.
Like, too many better cards have been printed that kind of fills the same slot. He reanimates a dude. I could endurance shuffle him back in, use a tutor to go get that creature again if I need to. So Cavalier was amazing because it was your only option, and now the card just isn't strong enough to keep up with the deck anymore. I only play 4 fetches. A lot of people are playing 6. Don't think you need 6. 4 is...
You have, like you said, 7 mana Dorks.
Yeah, you play 7 1-mana Dorks, and I play 5 2-mana Dorks. So you don't really need to fix your mana because all of your mana Dorks do it already. This is where things get a little weird. I played Takenuma.
Oh, right on. What's that channel ability?
The channel ability is 3 and a black. Discard it. You mill 3 cards, and you return a creature or planeswalker from your graveyard to your hand, and it costs 1 less for each legendary creature you control. Your opponent kills your Yawgmoth or your Grist, just buy him back.
Yep.
If you're mana flooded, and this actually happened 2 weeks ago, where my opening hand was a bunch of mana Dorks and a Grist. And I was like, alright, this is a fine hand. And so I turned to the Grist. They kill Grist, endurance my graveyard back in, and I top deck so now I just have mana Dorks and lands, and so you can't do anything. Top deck a Takenuma, which if it was any other land in that situation, doesn't do anything. I cycled Takenuma. At that point I did have like a Hepatra in play, so it only costed 3. Found a Yawgmoth with a Hepatra in play. Took the game over and won from there.
So good.
Takenuma really just says draw 3 cards, because you're either gonna mill a Yawgmoth. You could mill Grist. You could buy back Grist, Yawgmoth.
And even if you mill 3 cards that you don't need, that's getting you there quicker.
Yeah, that's milling 3 cards you didn't need. If you just mill 3 lands, you're gonna buy back a Wall of Roots. Those are 3 lands that you didn't need anyways.
Yep.
So Takenuma, I think the deck deserves to have it as a one of. Probably no more than that. You don't really need that much. Like I said, I'm playing 2 endurance.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really need the graveyard recursion too much. But with Grist, you're milling cards. What if you mill something that you really, really wanted? Takenuma back into your hand. I do feel like Takenuma, like I said, deserves a slot in the deck. I play it as a one of. I have not regretted it. I actually just really like the card. So there's that guy. And in retrospect to Takenuma, of course you have to play this card. Beseiju, Who Endures. Holy crap. just like Grist, you could go on and on for days on how relevant and how powerful this card is. So, the channel ability is 1 and a green, discard Besiege You, Who Endures, destroy target artifact, enchantment, or non-basic land an opponent controls. That player searches your library for a basic land type, and put it into play. It costs 1 less for each legendary creature you control. So the card speaks for itself.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. Destroy target artifact or enchantment.
For 2 mana.
For 2 mana.
That's really good.
Which it's a land itself, so early game you can just play it from your hand.
Mm-hmm.
It's fine. Late game, kill that Urza Saga, kill that Tron piece, kill
Rest in peace.
Kill that Blood Moon, kill. You could go on and on.
Anything that's stopping you from winning,
Yeah.
bye-bye.
It's like, cool, you Urza Saga for that Pithing Needle. Man, is that gonna suck? Besiege You does, like I said, it's just like Grist. You could go on and on and on how relevant this card became so fast. Like I said, you could just go on and on how strong of a card it is. Urza Saga, Tron is no longer a worry.
Mm-hmm.
It does put any basic land type into play, so they can get their triumphs, they can get shocks. If you're using a Besiege You on something, you giving them a land doesn't matter. It was just like the old argument for Path.
Yep.
Like Path isn't so relevant anymore now that we have Ending and March.
Solitude.
But there was a period of time where you casted Path because them having a land is less relevant than them having that creature.
Yep.
And Besiege You is the same way. If you are killing a card, that means you don't care about that land. You care about that card that is stopping you.
Yep.
Like you were saying, Rest in Peace, Wheel of Sun and Moon. There's a lot of... You are a graveyard combo deck, so killing your graveyard is kind of relevant, but Besiege You fixes that. And if you aren't playing around Blood Moon, Besiege You kills that Blood Moon.
Mm-hmm.
If you're, like I said, if you're playing against an artifact deck, they play a Pithing Needle, they play an Ensnaring Bridge. Besiege You kills it. If you're playing against Tron, kill that Tron land. Like, card is insane. Even if you're playing against Amulet, the card helps you against Amulet so much. It is that card. Like I said, Amulet is a race, so anything to like kill that Amulet on turn 2, yeah, you're giving them an extra land, but now they aren't killing. Now they're 1 turn behind. They can't just play their combo, do everything they want. They have to build that back up.
Yep.
So anything that makes that game last longer, the better. Once again, can't go on how important this card is. The rest of the deck, pretty standard. 2 shock lands. You don't really need any more. 3 fast lands because they don't hurt. They do everything perfectly fine. And then 2 of the canopy lands. If you draw them, you have to draw cards. And that's pretty much the main deck. I've been playing this list for, like I said, probably since Eldraine came out. So, what's that, like 3 years now? Eldraine came out a long time ago.
Yeah, I stopped playing right as that was being spoiled, I think. So that was right around like April of 2020, I think.
Yeah. So I've been playing the deck for a while. It's been a long time. And then sideboard is also one of those weird cases where it's up to you.
Yeah.
Personally, I played 2 Veil Summer, 2 Thoughtseize, 2 Necro, 2 Force of Vigor, 2 Crime and Punishment, 1 more extra Endurance.
Just in case.
Just in case. Like I was saying, card is absurdly strong, very powerful. 1 Outland Liberator, 1 Collector Oof, Obstinate Baloth, and a Scavenging Ooze in the sideboard. So, I mean, a lot of cards speak for themselves. Veil Summer lets you be reactive against the control decks. Thoughtseize lets you be proactive against a lot of combo decks and a lot of control decks. Necro is probably one of the weirder cards in the list, but is becoming extremely common nowadays because of just what it does.
Yeah.
You bring it in against a mirror, you name Yawgmoth.
Yep.
You're playing against Living End, you name Living End. Rhinos, you name Rhino. You could hit Tron pieces with it. It does say non-land or non-basic land. And then if you rip a card out of their hand, they get a 2/2 zombie.
Yeah, who
Who
cares?
cares?
Yeah.
I'm playing a bunch of crappy creatures anyways. I'll just eat those zombies right up.
Or even not, it's just gonna stare at a wall of roots.
Yeah, it's like awesome. So Necro is actually like really really strong. 2 Force of Vigor, once again pretty self-explanatory. Artifact decks are becoming more relevant now. Um, Once again, if you're trying to kill Hammer, this is the deck for you.
Yep.
Kill that Urza Saga plus their 1-drop.
Oh, Surgra's Aid.
Sigarda's Aid, yeah. Or you could just kill a Hammer.
Yep.
Card's really good. Crime Punishment. So this is the return of split cards, which is everybody's favorite mechanic. Crime, I've casted Crime once using a Birds of Paradise. It's never a good idea. It never pays off. What Crime does is you put a creature or enchantment from your opponent's graveyard into play under your control. So I have casted Crime, and because of that, I have lost the game before.
Wow.
Yeah, which is a really fun story. I casted a Crime on my opponent's Fury to kill their board. And so what happened was that they decided to play a 3-drop to Fairy and bounce the Fury back to their hand and casted it, and it killed me.
Oh man.
So Crime never pays off, but Punishment is where the card shines. It's X, black and a green. Destroy each artifact, creature, and enchantment with the mana cost of X. So it lets you just kill whatever X drop you don't like. Your opponent's playing a bunch of 1-drops. You kill all the 1-drops. Your opponent's playing a bunch of 2-drops. Kill the 2-drops. You don't care. All of your creatures that you care about come back anyways. It doesn't hit Grist, so you don't have to worry about that.
So, my question to you is why, if you rarely cast Crime and you mainly cast Punishment, why would you run this card over something like Culling Ritual, which is black and a green and 2 for a sorcery, destroy each non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less, add black or green mana for each permanent destroyed this way.
Sometimes you gotta kill that 3 or 4-drop. Sometimes you have to kill that 5
Oh, that's
drop.
fair.
Sometimes you have to kill that Fury.
That is fair.
I've casted the highest I ever casted Punishment was for 6, and that was to kill 3 Wormcoil Engines.
Oh.
And yeah, they get a bunch of tokens, but I had the second Punishment in hand to finish the tokens off.
Wow.
So yeah, Punishment can definitely just it's a one-sided board wipe.
Yeah.
Culling Ritual does just kill all of your mana dorks.
True, true.
Which, if you're punishing for 1, yeah, you're killing your 1-drop mana dorks, and if you're punishing for 2, you're killing all your 2-drop mana dorks. But you don't lose all of them all at once. And it's the same thing as like Besiege You, where when you're casting it, you know why you're casting it and when.
You're not going to cast it if you're not going to benefit some kind of way from it.
Yeah, and like I was saying, sometimes Amulet is your biggest race. Culling Ritual costing 4 mana versus Punishment for 3,
for 3, killing their
killing their
amulet.
amulet is really relevant.
Okay.
So in that matchup, it's great. And also punishing for 1 and killing an Urza, or punishing for 0, killing an Urza Saga and a Karn Strux feels pretty wonderful.
A 2 mana kill those is
Yeah,
pretty sweet.
pretty great. It does kill enchantments. Urza Saga being an enchantment, it feels awesome. So all the time. And one of Endurance on the board, we've gone over why Endurance is one of the best cards. If you know that you're going to be doing that grindy game, bring in the third one. If you're playing against another graveyard deck like Living End, bring in that third one. Why not? The card is good. If I had room in the main, I'd probably play 3.
Right on.
Skoos. Some people play Skoos main, some people play it in the side. I prefer it in the sideboard. It doesn't come up all the time anymore. It's really good against Murktide, and that's already a fine matchup for you.
Right.
So,
Anything with Delve, it's really good against.
yeah, but you usually do pretty well against the Delve decks, anyways. Murktide is fine. You usually kill them by the time they could really get one going, or just get a Grist and kill it anyways. Murktide isn't that big of a deal.
Right.
Darcy, I'm playing 2 main board Endurance. Darcy gets eaten by that Endurance pretty easily. So, Skoos I think is really good. If I were to play Skoos in the main, it would replace one of the Endurance, and I just think Endurance is better in that slot. Outland Liberator, once again, Artifact and Artifact decks are coming back. They're coming into the swing of things.
And if you manage to flip them, it's really good.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know what the flip side does, whenever Outland Liberator attacks, you destroy target artifact or enchantment.
Is it attacks or attacks and blocks?
Just attacks.
Okay.
Yeah. We could make sure just in case. Now that you ask that, now I have to look at it. It is whenever it attacks. Destroy target artifact and enchantment defending player controls.
Gotcha.
Once again, Urza Saga decks. Swing to you. So how Daybound and Nightbound work now benefited us so much because of this card. So if your opponent doesn't cast a spell on their turn and you cord on their end step, Outland will flip on your upkeep because of how Daybound works. It's how Daybound, if a player casts no spells during their own turn,
Oh, that's really good.
it becomes night.
Even I overlook that.
So what a lot of people don't realize, if it's your turn and you don't do anything and you pass turn to me, thinking that you're going to keep your Urza Saga up to make a token, I could, during your end step, cast a cord, get Outland Liberator, my turn, trigger, it flips to nighttime because you didn't cast a spell.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that's how Daybound and Nightbound work. It's very, very different from the old transform mechanic.
Oh, that is sick.
So you could do that, swing in. They're gonna make that token, but you get to either eat that token or
destroy it on attacks.
Yeah. It feels so good.
So they just wasted
an entire turn.
Yeah, like entire turn.
Just Outland could blow them out anyways. You could
wow.
You could swing, eat that token, or you could swing, eat the saga, sacrifice it, destroy the token. And they just wasted an entire turn while you paid 1 mana to 2-for-1 them. Or technically, it's a 2-for-2, but they skip their entire turn a lot of the time. Collector Oof. It's kind of the same thing with Tron. It's good against Tron. It's good against there's a couple of players in our local meta playing Scales.
Yeah.
So Oof is just good against the artifact decks.
Traditionally, I like playing decks that just somehow end up with like a 10% win rate against Scales. Yeah. So when I was playing Yawgmoth combo on Moto, I went up against Scales a few times, and I just blow him out. It
It's
feels so
it's
good.
so rough. I feel so bad for Scales
No,
there.
I don't.
I
It's their fault for playing
I
that
sit
heap of shit.
down, and they're like, "Here's this 1/1 creature with a +1/+1 counter." I'm like, "Damn, you're gonna have a bad time in this one." And they're like, "Hey, I'm gonna sacrifice 3 artifacts as Arcbound Ravager," and you're like, "Damn, here's this Yawgmoth that's gonna make sure that your ability does dog shit nothing." It's it's one of those decks where you're just like, man,
You
that
preemptively call the judge over to watch the
yeah,
game
it's like
in case that there's some roughhousing.
yeah, it scales. I love that deck with a burning
I know
passion.
you do.
I love it. That deck sucks. It's so rough right
It
now.
was good in the
It
past.
was good with Opal.
Yes.
I feel like that deck got hurt more than anything else with Opal. Like Affinity took a hit, but now with how Affinity's going, they're fine.
Um,
Scales has not.
Cheerios got hit worse because of Opal
Well,
instead of Scales.
Cheerios was a bad deck
I
anyways.
built it there for a while too, and I sold my Opals like a week before they got banned.
I mean, I stopped. Yeah, yeah, because I sold mine off right because I sold my opals because I was playing Urza at the time. I sold my opals to build this, and
Okay.
at the time, like that was even 4 opals. Yawgmoth was only an $8 card. Messenger was the most expensive card at $20. Now Yawgmoth is what, a $40 card?
I think last I looked it was like 44.
Yeah, at the time of this video. So yeah. Then onto the Baloth once again. Sometimes your opponent play it. Liliana's coming back. And then Burn is a matchup. Playing a 4/4 body and gaining 4 life is kind of all you need.
Yeah, $42 at the
Yeah,
time of this video.
$42. When I bought Yawgmoth, he was an $8 mythic from MH1.
Value.
That's how long I've been playing the deck. Like I said, it's probably the most fun I've had playing Modern because every time you draw a hand, your head's going. You had to be thinking of so many different lines, so many like
Yep.
far down the line. You get to kind of just be a good, like a really solid mid-range deck with a combo finish. Um, and it is up to you during that game. You don't look at your opening hand and like, oh man, I'm gonna play a mid-range game this game. You look at your opening hand, you're like, all right, I'm gonna start with A plan, and then you might have to go to B plan or C plan or D plan, and all of that is just what the matchup is, what's happening. There's so many times where it's like, ooh, I could go get my Yawgmoth. I have 2 Undying creatures in play. I could pay like 6 life, draw 6 cards, which is all really good, but sometimes you just really need to get Grist going and get those Grist activations happening. So it's more important to get that Grist in play than it is to like get Yawgmoth in play, draw a few cards. Sometimes Grist is just stronger. Sometimes getting that endurance versus that Murktide that's about to come down. Or sometimes you do have to get Yawgmoth over Grist. Like, oh man, they have a Ren 6 about to ultimate. I gotta go. But I really need Yawgmoth right here. I'm gonna deal. You could kill their board and then just like poke that Ren down just to keep the game going.
Right.
Every time you play the deck, it's going to feel different, and you're going to be doing a lot of things, um, which is why the deck to me just always feels fresh. It's also another one of those decks. Like I said, there's so many flex spots. Build it however you want.
Yeah.
There's so many good black green cards that always come out in Magic. As long as they feel solid. I mean, there is a Twitch streamer, Demonic Tutors, who's famous for playing Yawgmoth. He has a lot of 5-0 leagues with the deck. He has a list of like 20 some odd cards that are like, these cards are fine in the deck and still you could still play. He still thinks Ravenous Chupacabra is fine in the deck. which it is, and he's even said like, "Yep, you can play Cavalier of Night still if you want." There's a lot of Jund in um in your area. Cavalier is great. You might just have to spell Chupacabra.
Yeah, like that's any better.
Yeah, no. It's a 4 mana creature. When it enters the battlefield, destroy target creature.
Okay.
It's like a 2/1 with Death Touch, I think, maybe. The card's not great, but if you're playing in a meta where you need to be able to kill creatures at instant speed, tutor your library for it, kill your opponent's creature. It all feels fine. But there are a lot of cards that you could choose to play and choose to not play. Um, Deck is super fun. Deck is open. And like I said, you could always just customize it to play however you like. You could play a toolbox where you have a bunch of one-ofs. You play 4 tutors, so you're pretty much playing 8 one-ofs in the deck. Or you could just play all the best cards and have a solid, strong, consistent deck.
Right.
It really is up to you on how you want to build it.
Well, all right. That'll conclude the deck tech for Yawgmoth combo. If you want to know more about the deck, hop into our Discord. The link will be in the description. And we'll see you on the next one.